Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 2.0. Yep, that's right. 2.0 is in the house. I am happy to be back on your screen. It's a pleasure to be talking to you again today. You know what? This month we're doing something special. So I don't know if you knew this, but the month of June is actually Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So because of that, I decided to bring back one of our former guests who was on the show before. And when he was here, we touched just a little bit about the mental health process that he was going through. And you know what? I didn't want to just have him come back by himself, but I thought what would be better to have the discussion other than to have a professional who can talk to the impact and the importance of mental health. So that's why today I am so happy to introduce two wonderful guests that I'm having here in the studio. So it's a pleasure to welcome back our dear friend Eddie Lopez and the one and only Danielle Wright. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And Eddie, welcome back home, man. This is your place.
I liked it the first time, so I decided to come back, right? Why not?
No, we're happy to have you back, man, because you know what? The first interview we had was, I think it was powerful. You know, a lot of people were very happy about it. They had some mixed feelings, but you know, it's all good. That's what it's all about. But now the wonderful Danielle. So it's a pleasure to have you here on 2.0. You know, I have to say, I had a conversation with Eddie when I told him that I wanted to do something about mental health awareness month. Actually, it was your idea, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, I would love to have a professional to just talk about this because, you know, I don't know much about it. So I didn't want to be here just talking on the mic just by myself because that's what I see a lot of people do, right? As long as you have a podcast, you have a mic, you can talk about everything. But I wanted to make sure, you know, I had somebody who can speak to the importance of, you know, mental health. And also someone who's going through that process or who's been going through that process who can actually testify to how, you know, how impactful it is and how helpful it is. So that's why I thought it would be great to have the two of you guys on the show. So Danielle, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
One more time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this field?
Okay, so title is marriage and family therapist.
Okay.
How I got here, it's a actually funny story. I Googled it. Believe it or not. And I'm serious. So I was in my undergrad, and I have an undergrad in human services and psychology.
Okay.
And I said, I want to further my education. What do I want to do? I know I want to help people, but at what capacity? So I went online and I was looking up different programs, different degrees, and I came across family studies at Fairfield U. Okay. So I said, what's that about?
Right.
I got a family. They need help, right? So I started to Google. I started to Google and I saw family studies had a clinical side to it, which was the marriage and family therapy program. So with that being said, I kind of looked at the program and looked at like how long it would take, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to apply on a whim. Decided to apply. Got a letter saying you have an interview. And I said, interview? I don't interview well. How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
Long story short, had an interview with 12 of us. And I am no public speaker. Yeah. So it was a very interesting popcorn style experience of answering questions. And a week later, I was accepted into the program.
Oh, wow.
So I did, maybe 3.5 years, including the clinical process to complete the degree. And here I am. So that's my story.
That's amazing. You know,
Yeah, Google.
Exactly. Just
Google.
Google it. You know.
Yeah. Literally Googled it.
You know, most people would be like, "Oh yeah, it's been a childhood dream of mine. I always wanted to be a
Right? Because who grows up thinking I want to be a therapist?
I know. I had no idea. Like I said, human services was very intentional.
Right.
To help people, but I didn't know, like I said, at what capacity. I wasn't sure which direction. I had no one telling me to go to school either, so it's just on my own, figuring out how do I want to further education.
Gotcha. And what has your experience been ever since you've, I guess, completed your degree?
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world. I think I picked something that my heart is in. Obviously, money's involved,
Right,
but you know, my heart is in it. There's flexibility in it, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't pick anything else.
Got it. And how long you been practicing for that?
Technically, since about 2017, but like officially, like after graduating, I would say since about 2020.
Okay. And how's that been going so far?
Great. I actually jumped right into private practice when I graduated because, funny enough, I had my oldest son. So I thought, okay, how am I going to go out into the work field? It's
Right.
COVID.
Yeah.
I have my young child here.
Yeah.
Private practice it is.
Nice.
On a whim. And I
Nice.
had clients that I actually acquired through clinical that followed me. They're still my clients to this day.
Oh, wow.
So that's been great. At least 10 of them,
Oh, that's
honestly.
awesome.
So those are my starting 10.
Yeah.
And then I continue the journey from there, building on my caseload.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And I think COVID probably made it easy for you to transition into
Definitely.
that private practice, right? Yeah,
100%.
That's amazing. So now that you've been doing it for a couple of years, do you feel like it's exactly what you thought it would be, or what? Because you didn't know much about it when you Googled it, right?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Funny enough, I didn't have any idea what it was going to be like.
Okay.
But what I do know, like through like my clinical and being in school, I was very intentional in putting myself in uncomfortable environments because if I'm going to be able to help people,
Right.
I need to help everyone. So funny enough, I went to Fairfield U. That's a predominantly white school, and I remember being in classes, not seeing anyone that looked like me.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, no offense, but how are you guys going to help someone who lives in maybe an urban area?
Yeah.
Are you going to be comfortable going to these places
Right.
or coming to these people to have a conversation? And the answer is no, to be honest, right? So I want to serve the underserved. That was huge for me. So I've interned at DCF. I've interned Triangle Community Center in Norwalk. I've done Fairfield Counseling. I've done Mid-Fairfield Child Guidance. I mean, I've been everywhere on purpose for the sake of being able to be well-versed in the field.
No, that's awesome, right? Yeah, I mean that's great, right? The fact that it's like you did that very strategically because you wanted to be versatile and being able to just being able to service just about any community, not a specific one. So I think that was a good move. So now focusing on men's mental health, right? So one of the things that I've heard the term like a lot, right? Especially most recently, they're talking about not necessarily men's mental health in general, but just the general term mental health, right? So can you unpack that a little bit for us, like exactly what that means or what it's referring to?
Yeah, I mean, mental health is, I think, just emotional stability, in my opinion. So being able to process the different things that you experience, right? Simply, right? Yes, we go through physical health, right? We go to the doctor, we get checkups, we get shots, whatever the case may be. Mental health is really with the brain. Obviously, we endure a lot of things throughout the day, right?
Right.
And we need to unpack some of those things because when we overload ourselves, that body shuts down, right? Remember, our
Right.
brain is what's keeping us functioning, right? If we're not taking care of that, how are we supposed to function? How are we going to go to work every day? How am I going to have a conversation with you right now?
Right, right.
If my brain is fried, right? So that mental health piece is really kind of working through that. So when we deal with difficult situations that make our bodies feel different emotions, right?
Yeah.
Working on those things and whatever that looks like. For everyone, it's different, right?
Right.
Self-care is really important. That's a huge part of it. Decompressing, right? Sometimes we need to disconnect from things to be able to work through our mental health. So like I said, it looks very different for everyone,
Right.
but it's really that process of working through your brain, the parts of it, the emotional parts of it, the chemical parts of it, because
Right.
we neglect those things, not realizing that they're important.
No, that's very well put. Because again, like I said, it's just kind of like wanted to put some type of description to it, right? Because a lot of times you hear people they just throw the term out there and then not necessarily understand exactly what it entails, right?
Yeah.
So now the month of June, as I said in the introduction, is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, which is one of the reasons why I asked Eddie to come back because him and we talked about that idea of doing something and just to focus on that. And Eddie, I know you started the mental health process. So you want to tell us a little bit about that? So first, just tell us what triggered that, that interest for you to do that deep dive.
I think I touched on this last time. It was, and I don't call it an attempt because I didn't try anything.
Right.
Right. But it was the suicidal thoughts. And obviously knowing that if I reach that point in life, something's wrong. Right? Because I had like the life, right? I had the wife, I had the house, I had the kids, I had the career. Everything was good. Everything was great on the outside.
Right.
But internally, right? Like Danielle was saying, there was it was a mess. I think one phrase that I would use to describe my mental space was scrambled eggs. It feels like scrambled eggs in there.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't organize my thoughts. I couldn't formulate a sentence correctly because there was just so much that I packed on. So then, I think I showed the photo last time, right, of me up against the wall. Ezra was in the kitchen playing with my phone. That moment right there is when I knew I had to do something about the way that I felt. And ironically, right, you found your career through Google. I discovered mental health therapy through Google.
Wow.
It was literally, why do I feel X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And Google's response was, you need a mental health therapist. It's like, wait a minute, okay.
Yeah.
All right, but yes, my initial introduction into it was my suicidal thoughts.
Yeah. You know what? It's a very interesting description. Like you're saying, like it was scrambled eggs.
Yes.
And, so is that something that you hear, commonly in your field?
Yeah, definitely. And even to touch on the suicidal thoughts, men lead in suicide right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Men are the top people that end up taking their lives. And why? They're an underserved population. Let's talk about it, right? So the fact that we're talking about men's mental health is actually really near and dear and important to me because, again, I love the underserved population. I love working with them, supporting them.
Right.
And men are that.
Right.
Because you don't talk about it. It's not welcomed.
Yeah.
No one's asking you. No one's opening the platform for you.
Yeah.
Be a man, right?
Yeah, oh boy.
right.
Be a man.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you don't get the
Man up,
platform.
right?
So if I was told to man up, I can't talk about it. I can't process this. I can't even feel. Scrambled eggs is going on up here.
Right.
I can't take care of those parts of myself. What do I do? What am I left to do?
Right.
Take myself out, right?
Yeah.
That's only what's left.
Yeah.
So I've come to understand why men lead in that, where the flaw is, and even myself as a clinician have set out to support men who need to have the conversation. You'd be surprised how many people of my friends call my phone by 9:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So
That's amazing. Actually, I was thinking about that, right? Because from a man's perspective, talking to someone, talking to a therapist, talking to a psychologist, that is something that is so taboo to us.
Tough.
Like, we don't do stuff like
it's
that.
tough.
So,
no.
considering now we're in 2025, right, and everybody's, I guess emotionally woke. I'm gonna say that.
For sure.
So, do you see an increase in men seeking help, whether it's for mental health or just basic therapy?
Yeah, 1000%. And I think, again, COVID, as you said, was like the catalyst for that.
Yeah.
I'm confined in a home. I can't be a man. I can't go out and work. And I
Right.
have to take care of family. I can't provide. What's my purpose? Because the society has made your purpose be provider, right?
Right.
So if I can't be a provider and I can't execute in my role, I'm nothing.
Right.
That's a thought process.
Like, what purpose do I serve here?
Yeah.
I can't do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Remember, women are like the homemakers, right? So if we're home, it's okay. It's cool.
Right.
But I'm home and I can't do anything. What do I do?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's the reality,
Yeah.
right? Because men are like our purpose, right? We were designed, to protect and provide,
Yeah.
right? Basically, if you go back to the Garden of Eden, right? So God told Adam, you have to provide for Eve and for your family, right? So now, once you find yourself in a position where that position no longer exists, right, or you're not doing that anymore, like in the case of COVID, or in the case that you're going through a divorce, now it's like you're finding yourself having to almost rediscover your purpose, or just
Scary.
wondering what am I to do now?
Yeah.
And where do I start? Who do I talk to about that?
Right.
I can't talk to my partner, my spouse, my kids about that
Right.
because they have an expectation of me. And that's the other problem. These expectations that lie on men that that you have to live up to.
Yeah.
And if I don't live up to that, again, I am nothing. Scrambled eggs.
Right.
And then here goes the question, right? Who am I?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure you found yourself in that state of mind, right, Eddie?
Yeah. A lot more than I would like to admit. A lot more than I would like to admit. I mean, anybody that you talk to, right, who's ever met me before, it's just like, oh, but you always seem so happy, and you
Yeah.
always seem, jolly, and you were always the life of the party, and you walk into a room, and it's just like, yeah, but that was a guard I had to create. It was a guard I had to create to protect what I didn't want people to see. I'm not okay.
Wow.
right? Think of, public figures, right? You
Yeah.
have Anthony Bourdain, you have Robin Williams, you have
Yeah.
Chester from Linkin Park, right? All of these guys were in the limelight. They lived this life, but they all
Yeah.
committed suicide, right? Why? Scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
They couldn't say I'm not okay without being looked at a certain kind of way, and that was my problem, right? I had an expectation I had to live up to.
Got it. So Eddie, going back to when you decided to Google, what you were feeling or the symptoms that you were feeling. So once you discovered what it was it easy for you to, I guess, make the decision that you were going to talk to someone?
No, my first initial part of like my mental health recovery process, it was me. It was me and Google. It was me and AI. It was me and ChatGPT asking a million questions. Right? Because Latin men, and I say Latin because I come from that culture, right? But men in general, we don't talk to people. We don't talk to therapists. So what do I look like going to some random person like, hey, I don't feel good. Can we talk?
Right.
Because I'm not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of my initial introduction into what mental health was literally me and my phone in the middle of the night while I'm putting my kids to sleep. Because I couldn't let my wife at the time see me in that state.
Right.
I couldn't let my friends see me vulnerable. I couldn't let my kids see their father figure in a weak position. So a lot of my stuff happened overnight, like, putting the kids to bed and stuff, or when I'm alone, it's just like me and my phone, I'm Googling, why do I feel this? Or why do I feel that? Or why am I thinking about suicide? Why? Literally, I would ask the question, why am I not happy? If I can pull up my Google search history from 2021, this is just a list of questions I would ask Google, right?
Okay.
Because I'm not just gonna go to some random person and talk.
Right. So I'm sure you had friends, guy friends. Like, did you feel comfortable reaching out to any of them, or
No.
just talked?
No.
What do you think that was?
I'm a man, all right? I'm supposed to have it figured out.
Yeah.
To the standards to which I was raised, right? And for context, I was raised by my grandmother,
Right.
along with my mom and my uncles. My uncles and my mom were my siblings, right? My mom, I told you guys last time, she was 14 years old when I was born. So my grandma took over. So my grandmother, being a single woman, raising 4 kids, because I was the kid, right? She was single, she was independent, she was let down by man. So she raised me in what she thought the image of a man is supposed to be. Work, provide, protect. Shut up, figure it out, keep moving. Literally, that was my format of what being a man is like. And then male inspiration around that time when I was growing up was drug dealers or drug addicts. So we just can't go to random people and say, hey, listen, I don't feel too good. What are you feeling? And that was the other problem. I didn't know what I felt. I just knew I'm not okay.
You don't know how to describe it.
No, I couldn't. Like, literally, people would ask me, oh, hey, Ed, how you doing? The most mundane answer ever. I'm great.
Yeah.
See the smile? I'm good, bro. Just bought a house. I'm set.
Now, Danielle, is that something you encounter a lot?
Yeah. So it's funny. Eddie said 2 words that stood out to me: vulnerable and weak. 2 things that men are not allowed or open to do. Right. So if I'm vulnerable, I'm soft, I'm weak.
Yeah.
Look at the narrative that's put to those words when it's to a man. But if a woman wants to cry and be emotional, it's okay. It's well received. Like it's all right. We're supposed
Let
to
it
be
out.
soft.
Let it out, right?
Yeah. But if a man is weak or a man is vulnerable or expresses something, it's almost like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Right, you get the stares, right?
Yeah.
If I go to my friend, as a man, I'm speaking for you. If I go to my friend, right, and say, "Oh, I'm struggling," what's up with you? Get it together.
Yeah.
Like that response.
Right.
It's negative. So again, who do I talk to? How do I have the conversation? How do you even start the conversation?
Right.
There's no platform. There's no blueprint
Yeah.
on how to do this. So guess what? I'm just keeping it inside
Wow.
until I burst into a million
We're just
pieces.
gonna internalize.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just gonna internalize.
And like you said, that's how we end up with so many suicides. The men,
And heart failure.
Yes.
That is
Stress-induced heart failure is crazy.
Heart failure and suicide, top even 2.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, actually it does have it take an impact. I mean, it takes a toll on your health, so that's why it's important for for people to to embrace the idea of talking about your feelings and talking about talking to other people. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of like wanted to create this platform is to allow, especially men, an opportunity or a space where they can express themselves with no judgment. Just knowing that there is a community out there. There are people out there who are, available for you, available to listen to you, to listen to what you're going through. Because, a lot of times we think what we're going through it alone.
Listen, talk about it, right?
We think we're going through it alone, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, it was just you and your phone, you and Google,
it
right?
was me and
so
Google.
imagine how many other guys who are thinking of the same
Yes.
thing. It's just me and Google, there's nobody I can talk to. But
Yeah.
yet, here you are. You've gone through the process, or you're going through the process. So would you mind talking a little bit about how, since you started the process, like what improvement have you seen in your life?
Just overall freedom. Overall freedom.
Can you describe that a little bit?
Just being okay with not being okay.
Wow.
And genuinely answering the question, how are you?
Okay.
I usually give people the chance before you ask that question, are you sure you're ready for the response? Right? Because I don't filter myself anymore.
Right.
I don't sugarcoat things anymore. And I don't look to please people anymore. Right? If you ask me the question, how I'm feeling, I'm going to give you an in-time, real-time response. How you doing? I'm stressed, bro. I've been working 70 hours for the last 3 months. My kids live an hour away.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do morning FaceTime, right? I'm going to give you a raw response.
Right.
Before it was, I'm great. No, I'm not. Right? I'm not. And to give a little backstory on that, right? Like, growing up I'm from the east side of Bridgeport,
Yeah.
right? So growing up in that community, in the Latin community, feelings aren't something we're in tune with.
Right.
So bad enough, I didn't know how I felt. I didn't know how to identify it. And if I did feel something, I wasn't taught how to deal with it properly, right?
Yeah.
Raised by a single woman with 3 other siblings, mother and my uncles. Mistakes weren't understood. They were punished.
Yeah.
And you talked about health, right? Mental health and physical health. Food. Can we talk about that real quick? It's no secret to anybody. I weighed 540 pounds.
Right.
Can we talk about the fact how mental health played a huge role in that?
Right.
Because I'm happy, I'm gonna eat. I'm sad, I'm gonna eat. I'm
Right.
angry, I'm gonna eat. I don't know what to do, I'm gonna eat. I'm bored, I'm gonna eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then we just talked about like stress-induced heart failure or mental health, right? Suicides, or bro, we're talking about high cholesterol, diabetes. What else was there? Everything, right? Everything was up.
Yeah.
High blood pressure because I didn't know how to deal with my emotions, and all I did was eat them, literally.
Food became your therapist.
Yeah, no, food
Yeah.
became my vice.
Yeah, it was your way of coping.
Yeah. And then bad enough, I'm a truck driver.
Yeah.
Right? So it's me, my thoughts, and a 500-mile trip. Wait a minute.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
So earlier, Danielle, you mentioned men not knowing how to start the conversation. Like even if they're thinking about it, right? Number one, they're gonna feel some, maybe a little bit of shame to entertain that thought.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you recommend? Like how do they start that conversation?
It's hard.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
think there's a one answer, but I think research and knowledge brings forth comfort, right? So in one of my businesses, I provide a lot of consulting because people don't even know, and I don't mean just men, I mean anyone in general, right?
Yeah.
How do you know what a therapist is? How do you know what you should look for? The
Right.
credentials, like there's so many important layers to know who you should talk to.
Yeah.
I've talked to people who say, yeah, I've been in therapy for 15 years. And then I'm like, and you haven't accomplished any goals yet? Like what's going on? Like
Yeah.
you've used that person as your comfort and not as your challenger. So I'm saying all this to say, as a man,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a therapist, you need to find someone who's going to challenge and support you
Yeah.
by helping you complete goals that you have set out.
Yeah.
So that you cannot feel like scrambled eggs.
Right. That's what I like that. Right. So looking for someone who's not a comforter, but who's going to challenge you. Right.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we we all have a person that we can call, right? Because we know that
Yes.
person is just gonna sit there and listen and not say nothing, or they
And just yes
automatically
to everything.
Exactly.
It's just,
or they're just gonna support everything we say. They're not
Yeah.
gonna, they're not gonna be like, man, listen, man, you need to shake out of that. We need to do this and that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we go through our contact list, we do have some challengers as well, right?
Yeah.
But we tend to stay away from those kind
Of
of people.
course, you don't want to hear that.
Nobody likes accountability. Nobody likes being
hear
told
that.
you're wrong or this
Exactly.
isn't right or you should
Yeah.
do better.
Right, exactly.
Nobody likes hearing that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I guess it is important for us to to realize that facing the challenge is the only way to grow, right?
Yes.
Dealing with somebody who's going to challenge you, that's the only way to grow, because that person is going to hold you accountable, like you said. They're going to hold your feet to the fire, hold your feet to the goals and that you've set. That's the only way to to experience progress. But if you keep going to that person who is going to yes you all the time,
Yeah.
Coddle
Coddle.
you.
Yes, gonna coddle
Mom,
you.
I'm gonna be honest. Moms of boys are big coddlers.
Yes.
I'm sorry
Yes.
to say it.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that don't hold their feet to the fire sometimes. So, sorry, they become problematic at times.
Very much so.
You know what I mean?
unfortunately.
Yeah, they feed you.
Listen. God
Don't
bless
worry
my
about it.
grandmother. You guys know my grandmother, right? And to some extent, right? Like she and I have had the conversation where I explained to her how some of the things that I was taught, that she taught me, and some of the ways that we dealt with it wasn't the best, right? And good God, it broke her heart to know these things.
Yeah.
But listen, you played a part in this too. Okay,
1000%.
like you played a part in this too, and I'm not saying you was wrong. You taught me what you were taught, right? Because let's just talk about that.
Yeah.
But man, oh man, oh man.
Something I notice that's common for men, right? Who you choose as a therapist, who you choose as a partner.
Yeah.
It's your mom sometimes,
That's-
right?
that's
You look
mom.
for those comforters, you
Yeah,
look for those
yeah.
coddlers,
Certain
those
traits,
enablers, right? Because
boy.
it makes you feel good. So I can understand
Yeah.
the reasoning. However, if you cannot find someone who's going to be really in your corner that can support you and challenge you, not comfort and coddle, we don't want those,
Right.
or enablers, right? Those are the people you need as partners, as therapists, and as just the women in your corner.
Listen, that's the realest ever right there.
Yeah, that is
That's the
true.
realest ever right there. Yeah.
One thing I realize is, like especially after my divorce. So that was a traumatic, like an emotional traumatic period of time for me, right? So I did go to counseling, even though it wasn't official counseling, but I did meet with a pastor for about 2 years on a weekly basis, right? So I'm bringing that up to say sometimes we wait until like a major event or a catastrophic event happens in our life, and that's when we are seeking therapy, or we're seeking some sort of help for mental health. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of it, and not necessarily have to wait until something happened, for you to seek help, but it's something that you should almost do on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. My famous question when I meet a new client is, why now?
Yeah.
Because I want to know what brought you here right now.
Right.
Obviously, you're running to therapy for a reason, right? So that's a lot of what I talk about. Why do you want to come here now? Why
Yeah.
not yesterday, a week ago, a month
Right.
ago? I'm a firm believer that you should have a healthy check-in. Even a therapist should have a therapist, right?
Right.
I believe in that.
Yep.
Everyone needs a check-in. It doesn't have to be because there's a fire happening, right? We need to be able to just kind of be in tune with our mental health before it blows up. So even if you, I don't know, just want to get married, right? So there's premarital counseling. We don't have to be going through something, but we're about to enter another phase in our life.
Correct.
So let's have this check-in. We're bringing two different worlds together, right? So just in case, like, let's have a conversation with someone. Let's vet out our plans that maybe things we didn't even think about, right? That's a good
Absolutely.
reason to go to
Yeah.
therapy where
Yeah.
there's no issue, right? And we're just bringing these concerns here so that they don't become concerns later, and maybe we could have a successful marriage just by checking in with someone, right? That's just one thing. Maybe, again, you're about to hit a life transition, and you just need some support on what this transition is going to look like, because you don't know what to expect. Same thing. Let me show up to therapy. Let me get a third party's insight, I should say, right? Like that doesn't know me.
Yep.
An outside looking in is able to give me some insight and support on things that I would never think of.
Yeah.
So I guess I look at clinicians and I say, like, we are the ones that on the outside looking in, and we're going to pinpoint things that you never even would have thought of with your mindset, right? We're trained to kind of pull things apart, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I've had clients come to me about situations, and I'll say, first thing I talk about is family of origin. So that's the family you're born into, right?
Okay, yeah.
Believe it or not, family of origin is really, really critical and important.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying this is you're the way you are because of something you saw or something you ran away from.
Wow.
And sometimes it's unconscious. You don't know.
Yeah.
And I was just talking a little while to Eddie about even myself, right? And how I had to kind of look at why am I the way that I am. And a lot of it was I was running from stuff that I saw and I was like, I don't want any part of that.
Wow.
But I didn't know that until I got into this program.
Yeah.
And I would have never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. There's
Yeah,
interesting
that is interesting. And as you're talking, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, you know what? It's almost like it's a recalibration process.
Yes.
Right? Almost like when you take your car in for a tune-up, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there was something wrong with the car.
No, you just
it's more like preventive maintenance that
stopping
you do.
a small thing from becoming a huge thing, right?
Exactly.
And if I can tap into that family of origin thing that you spoke about earlier, right? It's crazy because that played a part in my divorce. Right? Because you just mentioned like you're either running away from something or you're chasing something that you experienced. Right? So I grew up with a lot of abandonment issues. Okay? So because of my abandonment issues, I always felt like I had to earn love. Right? I mentioned previously, I felt like I had to earn it by giving things or doing things, or I had to seek approval because mom was young when I was born. So my grandma had to step in and take over. Right? But even throughout my childhood and my adolescence and even in my adulthood, it's like, wait, how come I can't have a relationship with my mom? So I was always chasing that. Right? Now I get married. Right. So now, like I told Danielle earlier, I swapped my mom for my spouse. Right. So then I go into marriage thinking I'm supposed to earn love.
Right.
If I give you this, you're going to give me a hug. If I give you this, you're going to give me words of affirmation.
Right.
If I give you this, you're going to give me X, Y, and Z because I never got it as a kid. Right. So my introduction into mental health, the first thing I ran into was childhood trauma. It's like, oh, wait a minute. We're not talking about that, are we? Because I got some things I don't want to talk. And mind you, this is me. This is me by myself. Me, my phone, and my notes.
Yeah.
Because I guess self-medicated, if you would, right? and into mental health. So a lot of my questions and a lot of my concerns started there.
Yeah.
Childhood trauma. What did I experience? What happened to me as a kid that I feel this way now? Family of origin. Right. I always felt abandoned by my mom and my dad because, my dad got introduced to me later on in life. I was like 14 years old when I first met my dad. Right. And then my mom was always there. But like I told you, to me, that was my sister.
Yeah.
Because 14 years old when I was born. Right. So there was never that. But then when I realized that to my mom, it's just like, hey, can I get a hug? I feel something. I don't know what it is because my grandma's not going to give it to me because she's too busy working. But hey, what's up? Can I get some affection? Like, every child wants that.
Right.
So now I go into my marriage, right? But what happened was we didn't deal with that because you mentioned premarital counseling. Yeah. We didn't deal with that in premarital counseling.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
That could have been one of the things that came up.
Listen, talk about that, right? And I'm not saying that our premarital counselors didn't do their job.
Right.
We could have did a little bit more. Right? But then again, we could have put our part in, right? Me and my ex-wife, we could have addressed it. I think you've heard me say the phrase a lot, like we got married and we bled on each other for so many years.
But remember what I said to you, the difference between comfort and challenge.
Yeah.
It sounds like whatever you went through premaritally, they're going to get married.
It was comfort. There was no challenge whatsoever.
Yeah.
But
what are we bringing into this marriage coming from these two separate worlds?
Yes, exactly.
That's a difference.
But like I said before, right? Mistakes weren't understood; they were punished.
Yeah.
Right. So I can't tell my spouse I don't like X, Y, and Z because now I'm going to be punished. And what was my fear? Of being abandoned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So now I have to perform so I can get what I want.
Yeah. And it also there's another aspect to it too, right? It's like, you can go to counseling, but are you really forthcoming?
Is it effective? Yeah. Are you being an open book?
Exactly. Are you
right?
really?
Are you really putting everything out on the table and understanding if you take this into your marriage, it's going to be detrimental.
That's why that clinician is really important. Like I said, our training is very extensive to be able to kind of pull that. Because I can have someone come to me and they're like, yeah, I'm good. No, really? And I'll poke one button.
There you go.
One button.
There you go.
Because I'm looking right through you.
Yeah.
I poke one button and then I'm just getting an overflow of things. And I
Yeah.
said, wow, I thought you said everything was okay.
I know, right? Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
Right? Really?
I get a lot of that. I do.
And I think you were trying that before we started the show because you were
But you see the method, right? To my madness.
you were asking me some questions. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Is this a session?
But you feel it though, right? Like it's
No,
like,
absolutely, yeah.
how'd you know to ask me that?
Right, yeah.
Where'd
yeah.
that come from, right?
Exactly,
So that's
yeah.
just I usually start with family of origin and kind of work my way out because you'll find out you learn about relationships
Yes.
from the relationships you observe.
Yeah.
Of course,
You learn
yeah.
about how to be a man from what was there or not there,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
You learn these things again, and unconsciously you bring parts of those things to adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, like it's not always on purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes you try to run from things, you run into them.
Exactly.
Hard.
another part.
I, mean,
Yeah.
I brought all of that with me. Which is listen.
Yeah, and unfortunately, those things they manifest in different
Yes.
ways.
Yes.
They manifest in different issues. Sometimes that's why when you see certain behaviors or you see certain things happening, it's like it's important for you to do that deep dive and figure out what happened in their childhood or what happened in their family, dynamics or so on and so forth, because it's not just something that just came out of the blue.
No,
Right.
never is.
It's something that was not dealt with. So now it's just like, it's out there and it's more chaotic than you could ever imagine, So that's why it's important for us to do that work. But yeah. So Eddie, how long has it been since you started the mental health process or journey?
2021.
2021.
2021, suicide thoughts. Life was great on the outside.
Yeah.
Internally, it was a battlefield.
Got it.
Right. Even in even like achievements. Right. It's just like I have the car, I have the house, we have the marriage, we have the kids. At that point, I had stopped truck driving and I went to go be an instructor at Nets. Right. So now it's like, oh, I'm a teacher. Right. And then it's like I have all of these things going on.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't feel? I couldn't show that I wasn't feeling good because everything else says I'm fine.
Right.
But I ignored it and I stuffed it because I wanted to earn everybody's approval. I never wanted anybody to know that I wasn't okay. You can ask anybody that's known me before. I walk into a room and it's always jokes. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
That's my genuine personality. But a lot of it was formulated around protecting that hurt kid that's inside of me.
Yep.
Right? The one that was neglected, the one that was abandoned, the one that never got what he needed as far as support, right? Because part of my story is I had to grow up at a young age, right? Like I was doing things and seeing things, experiencing things at the age of 6 that nobody should ever have to go through.
Right.
Right? Growing up in the east side of Bridgeport was rough in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like from, deals going on or, people getting hurt or even in my own household, there was a lot.
Gang
So
affiliation.
no, it was a lot. It was bad. It was bad in the 90s in Bridgeport, right? Especially in the east side. So a lot of those things weren't dealt with. They were stuffed. And then my grandmother being very dependent on me because she's illiterate.
Right.
Right? Grandma doesn't read or write.
Wow.
So now, in part, she raised me to be the husband she needed.
Oh yeah. That she
Right?
needed. Yep.
Let's talk about that really quick. Because a
Yeah,
lot of the
yeah.
person that I am, I thank her, but I also, sorry, mommy, I blame her. Right? And my mom too, right? And there's a list, right? Because we got to be accountable.
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
Yeah.
So then I grow up into this person that I think I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Not to cut you off or not to, stir chaos or anything like that or trouble. But I guess that's one of the reasons they say, single mom shouldn't be really raising boys.
No, I
Because you cannot.
totally agree.
Because you cannot raise a
A
man.
woman cannot, and excuse me, a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man.
Right. Women cannot raise boys to be men. Oh my God. Listen, guys, I think this is a perfect spot to take a break. And we're going to come back next Wednesday with part 2 with the second episode titled Scrambled Eggs. So listen, do me a favor. Send a link to someone that you think is going to find it beneficial and leave a comment and let me know what you think about the topics that we are discussing here. And also, don't forget, if you have not had the opportunity to subscribe, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and be part of the 2.0 family so that every time we release an episode, you're going to be notified. So that's why it's important for you to hit the notification bell. Don't forget, live every day as if it is your last day, because one day it will be. I'm 2.0. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.